So our next video is started to look at the second course for our final assessment for level 1 diploma, and its description in the handbook is a poached fish starter. Okay, we're going to cook with some smoked haddock. I'll show you the ingredients that we need and I'll tell you what the dish is exactly. So we're going to use a piece of smoked haddock which has been trimmed just lightly, and I'm going to show you how to trim it very soon. I've got some spinach, so a handful of spinach. I've got some capers, some chopped chives, a little bit of butter. I've got a gherkin, I've got half a finely diced shallot, some olive oil, and I've got some black peppercorns and bay leaf. So the dish itself is called poached smoked haddock with spinach and a tartare salsa. So I called it a tartare salsa. If you think about a tartar sauce that you'd normally serve with fish, well, this is a tartar salsa. Tartar sauce is bound together with mayonnaise. This is just like an olive oil dressing. So it's quite a nice different accompaniment to the smoked haddock. To prepare the salsa itself, we're going to use these ingredients that I've got in front of me, and it's really straightforward. We've got the really finely chopped shallots, I've got some finely chopped chives, and I've got some capers. We also need to cut the gherkin, and we're just going to square it off, and we're going to cut it into brunoise. So really thin slice, and then into strips, and then all those strips we're going to cut down into small squares. Okay, so these are the brunoise, if you remember, really nice small squares of vegetables. So now we've brunoised our gherkin. All these ingredients that I've got in front of me, they all go in together. So in with the gherkins, don't waste any if we can. In with the capers, shallots go in just as they are raw, but it's really important that they are finely cut. So we don't want any large chunks in there at all. And then last of all, we've got some olive oil, a really good olive oil, just to bind those ingredients together. And then we're just going to stir them so they're all combined nicely. And then the last part that needs to go in is some seasoning. So I've got some rock salt, really good pinch, and some black pepper. And then we make sure we taste that to make sure that it is seasoned correctly, and so that you have some flavour in the finished salsa. So it's not too runny, not too liquid, not too dry, and there'll just be a little bit to dress around the plate as well. So for the exam itself, you'll be given a piece of fish, and all you'll have to do is trim it, make sure it's the correct size, make sure there's no bones on there, and then you'll cook it, you'll season it, cook it, etc. Okay? So when we get a piece of fish, we make sure there's no bones in there just by running our finger along there. Remember, a bone in somebody's throat could choke them or kill them, so make sure there's no bones in there. Down the side here as well, there's often bones in there, and if there are any, we simply use our knife just to trim them off, just to get rid of any excess pieces. Your fish will also come with skin on it, but we're going to leave the skin on for now, and then once we've cooked it, we'll take that skin off to reveal what's underneath, which is just a sort of shady part of the fish. But we need the skin on to hold it together when we're cooking. So for poaching our smoked haddock, we're going to use milk. Milk's a really good liquid for cooking smoked haddock, because sometimes you make a sauce to go with it, and the milk's really nicely flavoured. But it's also a good little liquid to use for poaching smoked haddock in general. It just gives it a little bit more flavour, a little bit more creaminess. In with this milk, we're going to put a couple of bay leaves, and we've also got some black peppercorns as well, which are just going to give the milk a little bit of extra flavour. Now I've just warmed this really gently. Milk boils really quickly. We don't want it to come to a boil, we just want it to be warmed through, so it's just a really gentle simmer. And I'm just going to test it with my finger, and I can still put my finger in there, so this is okay to use. Okay, we don't want it to be cold, we don't want it to be really hot at this stage. And in there we're going to really carefully just lay our smoked haddock, and you can see that the smoked haddock is submerged. That's really important, because if there's any bits of it that aren't submerged at all, they clearly won't cook. So this milk's starting to get warmer. As I said, the smoked haddock is still submerged. We're not going to touch that much, but this is going to be in here for about 10 to 12 minutes, something like that. We're just looking for the fish to start to become flaky. We don't want to cook it too much, or else it'll just fall in bits and it'll be completely knackered. So we just want it to be just starting to flake. As I said, about 10 to 12 minutes, but the milk mustn't boil rapidly. It can only start to simmer gently. So we can see the haddock's just started to sort of move apart a bit, so that's sort of showing me that it's cooked. So I'm just going to pull that just to one side for a second while I quickly cook the spinach. And to cook the spinach, all I need is a pan, and this is really quick cooking. And in there I'm going to put a small amount of butter, which I just want to start to fizz. Okay, so just really lightly start to warm through. And in there I'm going to put this handful of washed spinach. Really important that it is washed, because spinach is grown in quite a sandy soil, and if we don't wash it, it's quite gritty and you get pieces of grit going through your teeth. In there I'm going to put a little bit of seasoning, so a little bit of salt, a little bit of black pepper, and as it's cooking here, you'll see it start to change colour. It goes from that green colour that it is now to a slightly darker green colour, and as you can see, that handful also just sort of disappears into just a really small amount in a short amount of time, and it does start to get greener and greener, and the whole process takes about 2 minutes, maybe even less. Okay, so you can see how dark green the spinach has become. I'm just going to drain that now onto some blue paper. And I have to start working quickly at this stage because I don't want this to go cold. And also, using a fish slice, I'm just going to take our smoked haddock really carefully out of the pan. Careful to drain it off completely. Okay, and as I put it onto this blue paper that I've got there for draining, I'm going to then, while it's still hot, peel away the skin. Okay, so if we've cooked it correctly, the skin should peel away quite easily. Again, being really careful not to tear the flesh, just to reveal that nice texture underneath. So, smoked haddock is skinned really carefully. Just make sure the whole thing's fairly well patted dry. What I don't want is any of this paper to stick to it at all. Okay, so I'm just going to make sure that that's to one side. Using our spoon to start off with, we're going to take our spinach. You can see how much butter's gone onto the paper. We don't want that on the plate, we just want that left there. Okay, using as pretty a plate as you can find, Sometimes white's quite a good colour for this, but I just fancied this sort of darker colour today. Sit the smoked haddock on top of the spinach, and then nice amount of salsa on the top. We're just going to drizzle some of this oil around about the outside and a few of the other parts of the dressing as well. And then lastly, we've got some pea shoots which I'll just dot around just for presentation, just for that final picture.